Hey there guys, it's your old pal Bobo here from BrassReel Brothers. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas to everybody. Just hanging out with my old pal Scratch here, and I decided since it's the week of Christmas, I took a pause on my James Bond Never Dies series, the finale coming up with Daniel Craig. And I decided to focus on some Christmas movies for a second. As you can see, I got all my duds. I got my Jack Skellington cap. I got a non-matching shirt to go with this awesome Stranger Things Christmas sweater. Oh yeah, and it's sequined. It's the Upside Down! Man, that's a flippin' sweet Christmas sweater, even if you're not a Stranger Things fan. Isn't that right, Scratch?
It sure is, Bob.
And I got my awesome Gremlins set up back there. Yeah, that's how I like to decorate for Christmas. Some people do like the manger scene, the nativity scene, which is fine, that's great. But I like to do more pop culture stuff like this, kind of like I did that diorama for Halloween. But that's kicking me right into the film we're talking about, Gremlins. Man, I love this movie. It was such a part of my childhood growing up. I was born in '81. This came out in '84. So I was really hooked on Gremlins by the time the sequel came out. But this movie slash franchise, since I found out about it as a kid, has always been a huge part of my life growing up. Now, yeah, I got a ton of like NECA figures and stuff like that. But between all the Friday the 13th characters they have out there and all the Gremlins characters they have out there, I have more of those than any other figures I own. The Gremlins I love. It's awesome. It still holds up to this day. And look, all the people out there that are saying, is this a Christmas movie? Is this not a Christmas movie? Look, it's a Christmas movie. It takes place at Christmas. The whole time it feels Christmassy. There's Christmas music throughout. And the opening title credits are just straight up Christmas. But it's more than just a Christmas movie too. I mean, it's definitely comedy and horror at the same time. And I think because of how comedic the second one was, people forget about how horror infused the original one was. I mean, and man, watch The Howling and then watch this back to back and you'll see tons of similarities. Because The Howling was directed by Joe Dante. He was a horror director first. But man, he's famous for a ton of movies. Like The Burbs with Tom Hanks, the original Piranha, 1978, I love that one. But he also did that movie Small Soldiers, Matinee with John Goodman, and then one of my favorites growing up, which I gotta do a review on soon, Inner Space with Dennis Quaid, Meg Ryan, and Martin Short. Oh man, that movie's so much fun. Joe Dante's a great director. He knows a lot about fantasy, a lot about horror and comedy. Him and Spielberg decided to collaborate on this one and decided to make a movie that had never been done before. The best way I can describe this movie if somebody had never seen it, it's kind of like E.T. but with a lot of horror and comedy added to it. Because it has that sense of wonder and it's very Spielbergian feeling, but it also has this very Joe Dante feeling and horror-esque at moments. It switches back and forth between it all. It does a good hybrid of it. But it's starring Zach Galligan, who as a kid I always got mixed up with the lead guy from Fright Night. And it also has Phoebe Cates as the girl in it. And if you were a boy from the 80s, you had a huge crush on Phoebe Cates. Probably still do, like me. But the story is so cool with the whole lore behind it, with the Mogwai buys and brings home to the family. You know, its name is Gizmo. We all love Gizmo. He's so cute. But they set up all these rules. You know, you can't feed him after midnight. You can't give him water. And of course, all those things are going to happen in the movie because you want to see the Gremlins. And the movie does such a great job of reeling you into the cuteness of Gizmo and just being like, oh, he's so cute. But then it really does a good job of flipping the coin and giving you all this like nasty horror stuff with the Gremlins are in these pods that are all slimy. And then when the Gremlins are finally coming out and like attacking the city, they're pretty scary. I mean, as a kid, even today, showing a kid, unless they were like 6, 7, 8 years old, I might not show them this movie. Even though it's family friendly, it's got some imagery in it that might give a little kid nightmares. I was one of those weird kids that, yeah, it scared me, but it was always a fun scary for me. The only thing that really jacked with me and still does today is Jaws, because of sharks. Ah! I ain't getting in the ocean. Ain't that right, Scratch?
Ha ha! You know me, Bobs. I'm staying right here.
All the animatronics are great with the Gremlins, and you can tell that Spielberg was behind the fact of, hey, let's make sure these things are kind of likable to an extent, but you also don't mind it when it's time to kill them. And as you're watching this movie, you see that it's a Spielberg production. That's sort of the shimmer it has on top of it. But as it's progressing, you see the Joe Dante horror side wanting to creep its way through. And there's definitely that one scene, like the kitchen showdown, I call it. I mean, it's pretty creepy and it's gory. Like when she juices the gremlin. Puts one in the microwave. That one coming out of the Christmas tree behind her. I mean, that's some creepy imagery. And then, man, she just stabs one to death. She's walking around with that knife and that Christmas music's playing. I mean, it definitely for a moment turns straight horror, but just when it starts to get too much of the horror, it jumps back into the Spielberg production, which is what I think works so well about this movie. Doesn't push you too far over the edge, but it gives you enough to make you like, ooh. And speaking of that, man, Phoebe Cates' character, there's this one scene where they're walking and she's all negative about Christmas, talking about how she just doesn't celebrate Christmas. And then she starts talking about suicide rates around the holidays. And then later on, you find out why she doesn't like Christmas. She tells that whole story about her dad and the chimney coming down.
Firemen came and broke through the chimney top. And me and Mom were expecting them to pull out a dead cat or a bird. And instead, they pulled out my father. He'd been climbing down the chimney on Christmas Eve, his arms loaded with presents. He slipped and broke his neck, died instantly. And that's how I found out there was no Santa Claus.
Oh, that's some dark stuff. But everything about the movie, I think, really still holds up today. It's awesome. It's got a great sense of wonder. It's got some jumps and some scares, some comedy. And it's just fun all the way through. The second one to me is just as good, but it's a complete opposite film. It's much more of a parody. It kind of makes fun of its own lore. It's really self-aware. Like they start talking about the whole like can't feed him after midnight thing.
Wait, what if one of them eats something at 11 o'clock, but then he gets something stuck in his teeth?
Yeah, like a caraway seed or a sesame seed.
Whatever.
But that one not only makes fun of itself, it makes fun of pop culture. It even made fun of Batman, which was coming out at the same time. Gremlins 2 is just as much fun, and I definitely recommend it. But man, the first one is a classic. It just has that little extra something that makes it a really 10 out of 10 film. Gremlins is a solid flick. Huge part of my childhood, and it's a huge part of my life now. And it's got young Corey Feldman in it. Well, guys, that's it. Gremlins is a Christmas movie. I'm gonna do a couple more Christmas movies before Christmas hits, maybe one on Christmas Day, and then I'll get that finale out for the James Bond Never Dies, Part 6, with old Danny Boy. Old Danny Boy. Guys, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I love you with all my heart. It means so much. Hit that like button if you like what I'm doing. It does help. You can look for BrassReel Brothers on Facebook. You can look for Bobby Williams on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter, BrassReel Bobby at BrassReel. Trying to help us to get to 250 subscribers by hitting that subscribe button and helping us make it to the top. We can do it, guys. 250 before the end of the year. Love you with all my heart. Merry Christmas. And as always, life gives you lemons.
Make some hot, fresh popcorn.
Now, was that civilized? No, clearly not. Fun, but in no sense civilized.